The world knows the name Leonidas, a warrior, a king, a legend, but behind the myth, who was the man? This is not just a story of 300 men holding down an empire. This is the story of a Spartan life forged in hardship, destined for glory and etched forever in the annals of history. We often imagine ancient Greece as a land of philosophers and poets, but Sparta was different. From the moment a boy was born, he was destined for war. His life was not his own, but belonged to the state. It was a childhood of endless training, brutal physical conditioning that began at the age of 7. The agoge, they called it, a system designed to weed out weakness and forge unwavering loyalty. It was a constant test of endurance, both physical and mental. The goal? To create the perfect soldier, a man who knew nothing but the strength of his body and the will of his heart. Leonidas was no exception. He endured the agoge, excelling in every discipline. A natural leader, even as a young man, he commanded respect among his peers. But his path was not always clear. He was a third son. Not initially in line for the throne, he was a warrior first, a king only by chance. His older brothers had no heirs. Death or fate, or perhaps something else, placed the mantle of leadership on Leonidas' shoulders. He ascended to the Spartan throne, a position that was about much more than just titles and power. He became the embodiment of the Spartan ideal: duty, honor, courage, and stoicism. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He ruled with the same iron will he had displayed in the training camps. The responsibility was heavy. Sparta was a city built for war, and war was never far from its borders. But Leonidas was not just a strong arm for the city. He was a father and a husband. He loved those around him, but he never let that cloud his reason. And that war came in the form of a colossal empire. The Persians, under the vast army of King Xerxes, were sweeping across Greece like an unstoppable tide. Their numbers were unimaginable, their ambition insatiable. Greece, a collection of independent city-states, now faced annihilation. They were outnumbered, ill-prepared, and in disarray. News of the Persian advance reached Sparta. The Spartan council, cautious and worried, was hesitant to commit their limited forces, but Leonidas knew what was at stake. He could feel it, not just as a king, but as a Spartan. He knew that inaction would mean the death, not only of Sparta, but of Greek civilization itself. Leonidas made a bold decision. With the guidance of the oracle, he chose a small contingent of his finest warriors, 300 Spartans. Not a force to win the war, but a force to halt the Persian advance, a sacrifice to buy time. They marched to the narrow pass of Thermopylae, a choke point where a small force could hold off a much larger one. This was not just a strategic military action, it was a moral stand, a defiance against tyranny. Leonidas knew the risks. He understood that the odds were insurmountable, but he accepted his fate with grim determination. This was what he had been trained for all his life. This was his purpose. He became a beacon of courage for the Greeks at large. The battle at Thermopylae was a clash of worlds. The Persians threw wave after wave of soldiers against the Spartan wall. Each wave crashed into the Spartan phalanx. The Spartans fought with precision and ferocity. They knew their purpose, their strategy, and they were relentless. For days they held out against a force that numbered hundreds of thousands. It was chaos, but the Spartans never wavered. Leonidas fought alongside his men, a whirlwind of death. He was a force of nature, cutting down any enemy who came near. His leadership was not only on the battlefield, but in his personality, in his spirit. His example encouraged his men to fight harder and to hold out longer. The legend of the 300 Spartans began to spread. The Greeks found inspiration in the small group, but even heroes have their limits. A local Greek trader named Ephialtes revealed a secret path behind the Spartan lines. The Persians could now surround them. The tide had turned, and the Spartans were trapped. Leonidas had to change his strategy to protect his allies. Knowing that the end was near, Leonidas made another decisive choice. He ordered the majority of the Greek forces to retreat in order to preserve the army. Leonidas, with his 300 Spartans, stood firm. They would not retreat. They would not surrender. Their purpose now was to fight to the last man, a testament to Spartan valor and courage. They kept fighting, surrounded and outnumbered, but they did not waver. It was a desperate fight, a fight to the death. They knew they could not win, but they also knew the value of their sacrifice. Leonidas fell, not out of fear, but out of bravery. He was a martyr for his cause, for Sparta and for Greece. The last Spartan warriors were decimated, every man killed by a man. It seemed like defeat. But their courage bought valuable time. It bought the Greeks a chance to regroup, to gather an army, and finally defeat the Persians. The Battle of Thermopylae is not just a story of military tactics. It is about courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable spirit of men who refuse to give in. It is a legend that has echoed through the centuries. Leonidas, the warrior king, has become a symbol of defiance. His sacrifice at Thermopylae was one of the most influential moments in the ancient world. He is more than just a historical figure. He is a timeless symbol of strength, leadership, and the unyielding will to fight for what is right. His life, though brief, has continued to inspire through the ages.